Coming up next on the Jeff Crilley Show, if you think you know all there is to know about feminism, then you haven't met the head of the new wave feminist. Her journey just ahead.
Many are predicting that the worst is yet to come, which is unfortunate, said one person here. Until now, they've enjoyed the reputation of being the nation's icebox.
Watched a burglar in his home this morning by webcam.
As a journalist of over 25 years, stories are what make my world turn.
Reporting live from the Dallas newsroom tonight, Jeff Crilley, Fox 4 News.
But in 2008, I took the jump from my familiar life and started a PR firm from my home.
We're talking about anyone with a camcorder like the one I'm using becomes a television network.
We started slowly growing the company, and we now have over 100 clients, and we've branched into the world of live digital broadcasting. I now own 8 different TV studios and have a huge team. And the stories that I now get to share are sometimes the most important of my life. Life has a funny way of coming around full circle. This is the Jeff Crilley Show.
Well, I know there are stereotypes associated with feminism. Everybody, when you say that word, it can be a word that is polarizing to some people. They already have their mind made up on what that stands for. But we're about to change some minds today with Destiny Herndon-De La Rosa. She's with New Wave Feminists. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I want you to share with us your journey. You didn't intend for this to become a big national...
Ever.
Yeah.
No, yeah, it started as like a MySpace page and a couple friends, and throughout the years just kind of blew up because so New Wave Feminists is a consistent life ethic group. We believe in protecting the vulnerable from violence from womb to tomb. So it's kind of a little unusual. People think it's a dichotomy that we are pro-life feminists. We don't focus a lot on the legality of abortion, but more just how do we support women. And so we actually have a lot of pro-choice followers as well who are like, choosing to continue a pregnancy and raise a child is one of the options, and just how can we support women really well. I think a lot of people had a desire for that. A lot of pro-life women were like, well, I'm a feminist, but I've been told that I don't fit into this space. And, you know, feminism's rooted in rebellion. So I was like, well, let's create the space. Let's do it. And it has thankfully grown over the years because of that.
And you were telling me right before we went on that this actually started because you were kicked out of a march? Or
oh, no, that happened years later.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Back in 2017, we were sponsors for the Women's March on Washington. And we made it very clear we were anti-abortion, but we said we agree with you on so many of these other issues that we need to tackle collectively as women in society. And so we were sponsors for 4 glorious days, and then somebody got upset about it on Twitter, some big feminist, and she's like, how can you have them in? So they kicked us out, and I kind of thought it would go unnoticed, but Rolling Stone starts calling me, and BBC and NPR, and everybody wants us to comment on it. And so I think that's kind of what put us on the map. I had 2 weeks of just doing a ton of interviews and getting to explain our version of pro-life, our version of feminism, you know, what the consistent life ethic is. And I found that a lot of people who might disagree with me on some of the points, when they hear me talk about immigration, racial justice, you know, death penalty, these other issues that are womb to tomb issues, they were like, okay, well, I think you're crazy about that one thing, but I do agree with you on this other stuff, and I'm a highly intelligent person, so you can't be all that bad. And It really opened a lot of doors for very productive conversation. There's so much more common ground than I think most of us realize, because we're told we have to be on these extremes and we're polarized, but when you talk to the person right in front of you, there's so much we can work together on.
And I was on your Facebook page, and you have, I don't know if you call them meetup groups or chapters, but they're all over the place. Talk a little bit about how it's grown over the years.
Yeah, it's been really cool to be able to go and speak to college-age kids, because they are the ones kind of in that window where their friends are experiencing unplanned pregnancies and you know, having to drop out of school. My mom actually became pregnant with me at 19 at the University of Texas, and ended up, you know, delaying her degree by 10 years. And so I think that's why I was always a feminist. I was always pro-life, because I know it would have been very easy for her to terminate me. And yet the accommodations still haven't advanced that much. Like, how are we helping pregnant and parenting students? How are we accommodating them? It shouldn't be, you know, a young woman has to choose between her future or her child. Like, feminism should be about equity and her being able to have both.
Do you feel like is it getting a little easier just because we're in a time when you know, being inclusive and being diverse and having an opinion that might be different from the masses is really supposed to be accepted? accepted.
It is. It's supposed to be part of intersectional feminism. The funny thing, like with the march, for example, the higher ups decided to remove us as sponsors, but we still went. And so it was actually amazing to get out there, and the people, the actual other women we were marching with, it was an amazing day. And they would come up and they're like, we think it's wrong, and they're dressed head to toe in, Planned Parenthood stuff or something. You would think that they wouldn't agree with us, but they said, you have every right to be here. You have a different opinion. Like, guess what? Part of being a woman is being strong and being able to handle different opinions and have this dialogue and be constructive. And so it was a beautiful day. So I think that's, again, you have the talking heads, you have the people who, kind of divide us, and then you have the real boots on the ground people who are doing the work and loving women and trying to make an equitable society. And they seem completely fine with us.
Sure. And I know you had to be watching the Roe versus Wade decision, and what was your reaction to that?
I think it was really mixed because, my mom had her unplanned pregnancy, and then 16 years later, I also faced one. And I can tell you that when that second line shows up, and I more than anyone knew how difficult that life was. Like, it was incredibly, incredibly just terrifying, and the chaos and panic you feel. And I don't know how much laws affect that. I feel like we've kind of cut off the supply side, but we need to address the demand side. The reason I was able to choose life and now have a 22-year-old son, he's amazing, is because I had a roof over my head, food in my mouth, quality health care. I didn't have to be thrust into destitution overnight. And so that type of support, I don't think the government's going to save us. I think we have to save ourselves. I think a lot of it is, how do you love the woman right in front of you in your community? How do you step up and help her? Because at the end of the day, she will probably find a way to terminate if she is that desperate. Like, the fear and panic is real. And so taking some of that chaos and desperation away by meeting her basic needs, I think is the best way to be effective in pro-life activism.
Sure, and you're very passionate about a project, and I want you to describe this. We're going to show a news piece here in a second, but maybe set this up by, what is this project that you're involved in?
So this is in Mexico, right?
Yeah.
I get to talk about it. So we've got a stellar shelter, that's what we're calling it. It's the New Wave Feminist Consistent Life Ethics Center in Juarez, Mexico, which is a beautiful city, but it's fraught with violence, obviously, and a lot of women who come up to seek asylum because they are fleeing, the most horrific stuff you can imagine. And a lot of times when they get here, they will be pregnant, sometimes from sexual assault along the way, and they're just incredibly vulnerable. And so, we've got a board member who lives in El Paso. El Paso and Juarez are basically twin cities, just with a border in between them. And it's her community, and she knows it and loves it, and was working down there. And we got the opportunity to buy this huge house down there that we're going to be able to house so many women and children and just keep them safe while they wait to see if their asylum cases are accepted. And then we're also going to be setting up a medical clinic on the side of it. We have the perfect building for that. And so we can offer pregnancy resource care, but then also just well woman care, not only to the women staying at the shelter, but also the community at large. And we are so excited about it. It was a wild dream that was never supposed to happen, and then it did. And hoping to open here in the next few months. And it's beautiful too. On top of it, it's just beautiful. And we definitely believe in, dignity in housing and letting people know how loved they are and how valued they are. So being able to put them in this gorgeous space and just create community with them is going to be wonderful.
That's awesome. I love the way your eyes light up when you talk about this. We've got a news piece. Let's go ahead and roll that.
To pop up along the border. And as a record number of migrants arrive in the U.S., our Luis Garcia shows us how one of the newest shelters caters specifically to women and children.
In Ciudad Juarez, there are dozens of migrant shelters, but none of them exclusively for women and with its own clinic. Until now. Karina Breceda is a woman from El Paso who for 6 years has dedicated herself to looking after the migrants who arrive in Juarez.
What it really was when they started jailing the migrants underneath the bridge, and I walked over one time in Juarez, was my first time seeing them, and I saw this ocean of children crying. And my organization is a consistent life ethic organization, which means we're pro-life, and for me, migration is a pro-life issue.
Karina belongs to the New Wave Feminist organization that, after a lot of searching, found a large house that will function as a shelter, and when they discovered the Stella Maris on the floor of the house,
They knew it was the perfect place.
Stella Maris in Spanish is Rosa de los Vientos. It's this formation that forms in the desert, and it's almost like this guide. So for us, this was like Stella Maris guiding here, like the migrants in the desert, like this the star of the sea, the star of like the Rio Bravo.
This new shelter will host 60 women and children on a long-term basis, but there is also enough space to expand the capacity to 100 people during migratory surges.
We just need a little bit like of paint, and then we have the nursery almost ready. We need a little bit of details of the bathroom and some of the flooring. But I think our biggest need right now is volunteers. We're going to have sort of a Catholic worker model movement here.
But the shelter will also have its own clinic for pregnant women.
But we hope to have our own sonogram machine here and medical personnel to give full women's health care, which is STD testing and sonograms and pap smears and everything that a woman needs to have like a healthy pregnancy.
So Karina can't wait for the shelter to be ready.
It's not just a space that we can provide. We want to provide something that's dignified to people to reaffirm their dignity as people. And I want the bigger community to see that it's not a problem that's coming down. This is beautiful life that's coming to the border.
And you were telling me during the piece that it's really come a long way since that piece was done.
It's gorgeous. Our kitchen is black and hot pink and white, and it is such a cool space. Like, I can't wait to show people. I actually took my husband down for the first time last week, and he said, okay, pictures do not do it justice. This place is huge. Like, we're going to be able to serve so many people in the community. It's really amazing.
Well, I know that both your organization and this organization work off of donations. So look into the camera on the left and just talk to the viewer on why they need to donate.
Yeah, I mean, supporting our work, 100% of the donations go directly to our border effort. When you get to the page that says Stellar Shelter, it all goes directly to the border. And even during this time while we're getting our shelter up and running, there's been a crisis in El Paso. And so Karina, my best friend, the one in the interview, the most amazing human being in the world, she literally was going out every night, finding women and children and getting them safe housing, even on the El Paso side. And so donations were able to help us do that and just, again, care for the most vulnerable. And that's definitely what we're seeing down there. But being able to see something on TV and say, this is really heart-wrenching and I wish I could do something. Karina is the boots on the ground, and I'm very lucky that I get to go and participate in that work with her as well. But she's running the show down there and taking care of those people. So it will go to very good use if you want to donate.
Outstanding. I think it's only appropriate that your name is Destiny, because truly you're living your destiny right now. We're going to end with the website, which is newwavefeminist.com. Destiny, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
That's it for now. We'll see you next time.